Okay. So as people continue to sign in and we get started tonight, how many of you guys have already started school? Anybody yet? Kale has? Yeah, I know the schools in Bossier started today. My granddaughter went back.
Okay. Lafayette Parish started today.
Did they, Lafayette? Okay. Heather? Wow. It is like you had absolutely no summer at all. This is craziness. You know, I'm old enough to remember the days back when we would start school after Labor Day as opposed to in the middle of the summer. So, you know, God bless you teachers who had your first day today, and, you know, thanks for being with us. I know it's a long, hard day.
Oh, sure.
So if you don't mind, if you would mute your mics, just like you're going to actually chime in. So I still see a couple of people unmuted. I'll try to help them out here and get them muted. Okay, I think I got everybody. Well, we have, oh wait, one more. Oh, Heather, you've been in PD since last week? Yeah, all the Caddo Parish teachers were here at LSUS today, so parking was crazy for those of us that actually work on campus. We do have a guest with us tonight. He's actually going to be a new faculty member here at LSUS in the EDL program. So I'm going to put him on the spot and have him go ahead and introduce himself to you. Of course, he has to be awesome and excellent to get to work with students like you, but he's particularly awesome and excellent because he teaches at my alma mater, the University of Texas. So, you know, that gave him an absolute end to our program. So, Dr. Coulter, you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody what you're going to be doing with us?
Yes, thanks, Tracy. My name is Nelson Coulter. I've been in education for 40 years. Started out as a math teacher and an athletic coach and drifted up through a number of jobs that I was not very good at all along the way. I got a resume full of things that I can't do very well, but made my way through coaching men's athletics, women's athletics, athletic director, assistant principal, campus principal, superintendent, and professor of education. And I've just recently, just within the last week, signed on to be visiting professor in the program in which you all are in. And I'll start out this next term teaching graduate research, and looking forward. Some of you may be taking that class. I don't know. We'll get to learn some interesting things together. Thanks, Tracy, for inviting me into the party tonight and giving me the opportunity to see how you deploy this technology.
Well, like I said, we're glad to have you. Welcome. Dr. Coulter also is going to be helping, more than likely now, you know, things are always subject to change, but with the internship. So for our MEDL students, that's EDL 716. And since my class sizes seem to be becoming a little bit unmanageable in some ways, he may be splitting some classes with me. So for those of you that are in the MEDL program, you'll get to work with Dr. Coulter. If you're one of our MEDCI students, you might get to take something with him, maybe like EDL 707. Not sure yet. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. So again, we're glad to have you, Dr. Coulter. Well, you guys, as you know, we're kind of winding down. We've only got one more week of class left. You know, yay, I think, at least for most of us anyway. But I also did a marathon amount of grading the last couple days. So you should have seen a bunch of grades post. But I will tell you, as you all know, Moodle hates me. So when it came to trying to grade the group projects, I think the grades are there, but if for some reason you guys have turned something into me, particularly in Moodle with the group assignment, and you don't see a grade, just email me and let me know. You know, it's supposed to be that if I grade one submission for the whole group, then it gives everybody the grade, but it didn't look like it worked today. So just let me know so I can go back and double check. And also, before we start tonight's presentation and discussions, I was going through and reading and looking at some of the feedback you guys have given me, and some of you still have some kind of burning questions about professional learning communities and how they work. So I tried to answer those as much as I could individually, but, you know, quite honestly, there's 97 of you and one of me, so I didn't want to miss anything. So I'm going to recap a couple of things that seem to be a recurring theme. And if you still have a question that hasn't been answered, please jump in, okay? So people were asking, who leads a PLC? Guys, it can be led by anybody. Sometimes it may be your campus principal, it may be an assistant principal, it may be a department chair or a team leader. It can be just any teacher. I've shared with you guys, I used PLCs constantly as a high school principal when I was in Irving. We had PLCs that were made up of our administrators, that were made up of our teachers, that were made up of students, made up by parents. My parent PLC was led by a parent. My student PLC was led by a student. So there's no set answer to it. It's just the configuration that works best for you. Also, people are wanting to know, how often should a PLC meet? Well, there's the ideal, and then there's the reality. Because remember, one of the things that, is very important to those of us that teach in this program, we are practitioners. We've been there and done this kind of thing. So ideally, PLC should meet once to twice a week for approximately 30 to 45 minutes. But I know in reality that is not always possible. So carve out the time when you can. If you can't meet during the school day, during a planning period or something like that, then, you can meet before school or you can meet after school. I had a team of teachers who they happened to all like to do certain things together. They would meet on Saturday mornings. That was their choice. And we just kind of took turns attending their particular PLC. So I know time is an issue, but you have to figure out a way to do it because this is such an important tool to help with student achievement as well as collaboration and teacher learning and development. Okay, so I'm looking over at the chat. So Kim, what topics did the parents, it was really kind of interesting because I started the parent PLC because they were driving me crazy, quite frankly. I think I may have shared with you guys when Dallas recruited me to come back to them from Irving. They were paying me this ridiculous amount of money. They were matching my assistant superintendent salary to be a principal of a school with 650 students. And, I wasn't born yesterday. They don't pay you that kind of money to run a small high school unless there's a real problem. Well, I found out pretty quickly what that problem was. They were called parents. So when I sat down with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, I said, okay, I get what I need to do. I know that I'm supposed to get achievement, all that. I understand. I said, well, what's the real reason that you wanted me to come to this school and you recruited me so hard? And they both looked at each other and said, get those people to stop calling us. And I said, those people, I said, the parents. So in a school district the size of Dallas, which was, approximately 163,000 students, they logged over 2,000 parent phone calls from this little high school of only 650 students in a single semester. Of those 2,000, 1,000 actually got escalated all the way to the superintendent. And they said, we feel like we're running the Booker T. Washington ISD as opposed to the Dallas ISD. And we need you to get that under control. Well, we did, and I'm very proud of the fact that 2 years later when they named me the Principal of the Year for Dallas, and I was being introduced to the school board, a lot of people are like, why her? It's a small school, it's 650 students. How hard is that, when everybody else is running much larger and more difficult schools? And I'll never forget what Superintendent Hinojosa said to the board. He said, I want you to know that since Tracy took over, he said, we went from 2,000 logged phone calls. In 2 years, we're now down to 3. And he said of those 3 phone calls, 2 of them were from the same parent, and it was a board policy they didn't like. And he said, and the other parent, they just wanted to give us a suggestion for something, again, that was related to the board. So the parent PLC became a necessity for me because I could not manage. I mean, it was literally people constantly bombarding me. So what I did with my PLC, I asked them to, we found a group of parents, and some were volunteers, some were, nominated, I guess, suggested, whatever. But I took the most vocal, difficult parents who were sort of they carried the opinion, whatever they thought everybody kind of bought into. You know who I'm talking about, right? The parents that were the biggest pain in my neck. And I made them a PLC. And what I did was I sat them down and I said, okay, guys, I need you to be my thought partners. And I need you to ask me the hardest questions you could possibly ask, because I need someone who's going to keep me on my toes, keep me current, and help me to really propel this school forward. And so we met every Saturday, the first 3 months, at La Madeleine in the morning for breakfast on a Saturday, and their job was to ask me the hard questions. Well, guess what? We didn't actually meet every Saturday for 3 months, because when they found out that I was really listening to what they had to say and that I wasn't there to try to, just ignore the parents or to do things that were maybe not appropriate or in the best interest of kids, we actually only met 3 times. And it completely changed the entire feeling of the school, quite honestly. I continued to say, we're going to have meetings, anybody can come, but it just kind of worked. But eventually those PLCs morphed into, as we were looking at our 10-year strategic plan and our 5-year plan, we had parent committees that worked on that. We had some that when we were trying to maybe implement some new and innovative programs, parents who were involved in that. And then some of it too was to really redefine what our PTA was all about and what our school management team was about, et cetera. So lots of topics can happen there. Okay? All right. Are there any other questions, guys, about PLCs, or you feel like we're in a pretty good place? I know several of you, too, are still concerned about how do you handle that person in the PLC who doesn't want to participate, or maybe is passive-aggressive, or who doesn't buy into it, etc. So we talked a little bit about that last week, and I've posted some more information and some articles, but I wanted to share with you something I found today that I thought really kind of answered this question. So what do you do when you have a team that has never been held accountable before? So we've talked about functional, dysfunctional, effective, not effective PLCs. Part of the thing that makes a PLC most effective is there has to be team accountability. And oftentimes that does not exist. So how do you start? How do you make sure when you've got those people that you know are going to be difficult and challenging, how do you get them to buy in and create that sense of accountability for results as well as for progress forward in the meetings? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to take responsibility. So what I mean by that is you need to make sure that you let the team know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Shouldn't be a big secret. Remember, I've talked to you about make sure that you are sending out those agendas ahead of time, that you're letting people put topics on there, that we're using techniques that get buy-in and participation from everybody. But it's really, really important. In fact, if you want to use that sort of transparent leadership mindset, you might even say to them, look, guys, I haven't been the best leader in this area, and I need to kind of get started again with you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about why we're doing PLCs, what we hope to accomplish, and how we're going to measure our success. So that responsibility is really, really important. That will also give you as a leader credibility, and it models for others what kind of behavior you're expecting. Okay? The second thing you need to do is reset expectations. So you have to be very clear about those expectations and what you want the team to accomplish. Somebody asked in one of the forums, how do you know if a PLC is effective or not? Guys, it's all about results. Whether you like the accountability movement or you don't like it, it is here for us to deal with and to make sure that our students are successful. So you don't have to beat people up for poor performance, but you have to make sure that you are making commitments and holding people accountable for their actions. Okay? Okay, sorry, I'm trying to read on the side here. So Virginia wants to know, what do you tell teachers that say, what are we going to do different when Louisiana has given us exactly what we have to do? They've already chosen our best practices. Guys, at the end of the day, and this is probably not the correct answer, but I'm going to give it anyway. At the end of the day, it's your classroom. You're the one who's held accountable for those results. I don't know of a teacher, I may be wrong, but I personally do not know of a teacher who ever got fired for getting excellent results and they did not follow the state's curriculum or mandates. Now, if you don't get great results, You bet. They're going to hammer you on every little piece. But at the end of the day, it's about student achievement. And, you know, even though Louisiana is going to give you their best practices, I'm pretty sure they may not be mandated in the sense of, you know, thou shalt. Minute 1 of your class, do this and this and this. Minute 3 of your class, do this, this, and this. It's not like that. They're giving you a list of best practices that are research-based and should be used, quite frankly. But at the end of the day, like I said, if you get the highest scores that you can possibly get for your kids, nobody's going to come behind you and say, well, you didn't do such and such best practice on Thursday in March like you were mandated to do. Does that make sense? Sometimes as a teacher, guys, you've got to be a risk taker. And, you know, I always encourage people to be risk takers if it's going to be in the best interest of kids and it's not moral, unethical, illegal, you know, that kind of stuff. And like Jennifer says, you know, Lafayette Parish doesn't even follow or use the date guidebook for ELA. And also, too, think about the name. The name that Louisiana chooses to use, it's guidebook. It's not, you know, the Bible of thou shalt, okay? All right, so let's keep going here. So the third thing you need to do is equip everyone with the basics of team accountability. Remember how we talked about, you know, before you even start the PLC, you've got to do a lot of pre-work. You've got to make sure you know exactly what each team member is bringing to the table. You need to spend some time team building. You need to make sure you're establishing norms and all of those pieces. You have to make sure, too, that you're creating a space for conversation. Like I am doing a terrible job tonight of modeling for you what a PLC should be because I'm doing all the talking. In a PLC, a good leader does 10 to 20% of the talking, 80% is done by the participants. Okay? You also need to make sure that if someone is misbehaving, you know, think about your classroom. If you've got a student who's misbehaving, do you just ignore it? Do you just let that student continue to be out of control or disrespectful? No. So why would we let adults exhibit those same poor behaviors? So if you notice that someone is doing something that's, you know, distracting or is counterproductive, call it out. You know, for example, if part of the PLC expectation was that everybody should bring a copy of their last formative assessment and 3 student work samples. And Tracy shows up and she doesn't have them again. You need to say, Tracy, I noticed that you didn't bring your last formative assessment and the 3 work samples. You know, is there something we can do to help you to get the materials that you need to our meetings? When you do things like that, guys, it will make a difference and it will help those people to feel like there's a sense of responsibility as well as accountability. You also have to support them. So, you know, I just gave you an example of how you can show that. You also need to probe and involve people in the discussion, even if they don't want to be. So we've talked about coaching and how you ask some of those really probing questions. But, you know, for example, again, if I'm not participating, you know, just like if I were a student in your class, what are you going to do? You're going to ask me a question. You know, Tracy, you know, what do you think about? Or what do you feel like is maybe the root cause or whatever, okay? You also need to invite people into the conversation. So, for example, if they think that the PLC is not effective, you might say to them, tell us how we can make this more effective. And then remember, assign them the work to do it, okay? Turn it back on them. Also make sure, too, that you review. So, again, guys, this is good teaching, you know? If they give a response, you may want to summarize it real quickly before you move on. And then, of course, enforce. So if someone's not doing what they need to do, schedule a one-on-one meeting time with them. And then from there, you're good to go, okay? All right, the fourth thing you need to do is reinforce your expectations. So, for example, if your team is a rock band and you are the drummer, you better make sure that you've got everything you need and that you're being responsible for the expectation with the team. Okay, so remind everybody, I'm the drummer, I'm bringing the drums, I'm bringing the sticks, I'm going to keep the rhythm for our show. You might have to remind people all the time. In fact, I would suggest at least for a while until you feel like your team is more effective, go over those norms every single meeting and start with that to keep everyone on track. Also make time to celebrate. You know, we're great about picking all the things that are wrong, but you know, it's like that positive reinforcement you do with a child. When there's a baby step, celebrate it, reward it, make a comment, write a note, do something, but make sure you don't ignore it. It's really important. Also, make sure you're practicing your own accountability. People, you know, particularly when you're in a leadership role, whether it's principal, teacher leader, you know, whatever, remember, you have to show people and model for them what you expect. So, if I'm leading a PLC and I happen to notice that, you know, on our last formative assessments, my kids didn't do very well, I'm going to be the first one to step up and say, you know what, on the last formative assessment, I only had a 23% passing rate. I really need help from the team, you know. Susie, you got this great result. What did you do differently than I did that helps? Okay? So, kind of makes sense? If you bring accountability and responsibility, guys, you put people in positions where they have to participate, I think you'll be surprised. You know, we talked a lot last time about some of those things. Okay, so I'm going to look at some of these questions real quick. Yeah, you do need leadership support. And, you know, worst case scenario, ask your principal to sit in and let them handle the person who's not performing or behaving. Judy wants to know, how often does a principal attend a PLC? You know, it really depends on the structure. There does need to be the accountability piece that some sort of a report needs to go back to the principal. You know, we just had a simple template that they used and they turned in so that we could kind of keep abreast of their meetings. You know, an effective principal is probably going to go to as many of those meetings as they can. Not to run them, just to be fly on the wall, to answer any questions that maybe people have, to provide some guidance or support, but also sometimes too to be the police monitor. And that really can help. But, you know, like I said, I know when I ran the big high school with 3,000 students, I could not be at every single PLC. There was just too much going on. So my leadership team, we were all assigned to particular PLCs so we could manage it a lot better. Jennifer, yeah, we always start our PLCs by stating the norms. Oh, I like that too. They give a win-win for the week. That's awesome. Okay, I think that was, any other questions I missed? Okay, Kayla, you want to share? Go right ahead.
Okay, just real quickly, I had to lead a PLC last year for the leader and me being the coordinator, and we were implementing digital binders. And so I trained the teachers on what it was going to look like and how to roll it out to the students. And at the end of the day, my last group, I had heard from other PLC leaders that they're very negative. They're very negative. Just, you know, be on the lookout, have a game plan on how to handle them. And so I decided to play music, just some upbeat music when they came in. And they came in, some started singing with it, and it was actually a very positive meeting. I don't know if that did it, or you know, something else was in place that worked better than other PLCs they had attended, but it was a really good experience, and it actually was the experience that led me to going for a master's in administration.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Yeah, the more you can do to make things, you know, guys, who says that professional development and meetings and stuff can't be fun? You know, absolutely. Anytime you can bring in something that's going to make people feel relaxed and happy, that is a huge plus. And in fact, I don't know if any of you came, we sponsored professional development last year by a gentleman named Luis Maggioni. He is phenomenal. In fact, I'm going to post his link. We're going to try to get him to come back this year, but he does a whole segment on using music to impact learning. And quite frankly, I know as a principal, I've been to many of his trainings. I used that with my teachers, and it made a huge difference. But he's very specific about the kind of music you need to use, at what time, and, you know, like he says, he loves all the Italian crooners. And he literally it's such a cool process because he taught us Italian. I mean, I could speak a little bit of Italian after the end of his presentation, and I know nothing about Italian. But it was through this visualization music sort of process. And it's all around the idea of brain-based learning. So, Kel, yeah, you were absolutely intuitively, you know, tuning into that, and that can make such a difference. Great suggestion. Okay. Any other win-wins you guys want to share tonight? Y'all are just like, it is a Wednesday. We are either stuck in professional development or it's the first day of school and we just really want to go have some wine or something like that, right? Okay, I'm going to speed through the rest, guys, because at this point, a lot of this is just repetitive. So let me see if I can share my screen with y'all. There we go. Okay, can y'all see my screen now as opposed to me? Nod? Okay, thank you. All right, so this is just a recap. We're finishing out the course, and a lot of you are kind of ahead, and basically the only thing we've got left to do at this point is going to be the final exam. So what is a professional learning community? I'm not going to read this to you. You know what it is, but just some reminders of what you should be doing during a professional learning community. We need to be looking at achievement, setting goals. What is it that's essential for our students to learn? Remember, I shared with you, Bill Daggett has done a ton of research in looking at Common Core as well as other state standards. I'll pick on Texas, my home state. And he says that 1/3 of the standards that teachers are asked to teach should be and can be eliminated. That you can actually bundle standards and still have very effective learning and high student achievement. We give teachers too much to teach and not enough time to teach it. So go for depth and complexity, not breadth. Okay? You also should be thinking about, remember we've talked a little bit about, and we certainly go more deeply into this in EDL 707, why we need to have formative and summative assessment. Historical data is that. It's historical. So by the time you get your end of the year state results, number one, the teachers don't have those students anymore. There's nothing you can do about it. It is at best predictive of some of the gaps in knowledge and learning students need. Of course, you're going to share best practices and you're going to do some research. So I've asked you guys to do, and you guys had some great graphic organizers. I'm going to try to download some of them and post them just at the end so you can have them. But this is an example of what a PLC might look like. If you remember last week, I showed you that poster that we had made when I was in Dallas that kind of captured some of this too. And I think Kimberly asked me if I had posted it. No, I forgot. Thanks, Kimberly, for the reminder. I will post it tonight. So again, this just kind of shows in a pretty quick format what a PLC should be. So as you're thinking about starting one, after you get that team building piece going and the norms are established, I would share something like this with the teachers. It's really helpful to see really what it is we're about and what we should be doing. So remember, successful PLCs focus on a commitment to student learning in a collaborative and accountable culture. Remember too, and many of you wrote about this in your assignment last week, how important building that strong school culture is in making sure that we are successful. Okay? There should be collective inquiry, actions, not just talk. Continuous improvement is our mindset and certainly a critical element. We also need to look at actual results, not our best intentions. So we're going to talk, I'll share with you next week, how do you, what am I trying to say? How you can assess the effectiveness of your PLC. Okay, so why do we need to collaborate? What are those key questions? We've heard these about 10,000 times, so I think we know them all. What do we want students to learn? How do we know if they've learned it? What will we do if they don't? And remember, don't forget that enrichment. What do we do if they already know it? So I'm going to post for you next week. It's called the PLC Guidebook. It came out of Region 11, I think, in Texas. But it's really a great resource because it literally talks you through step by step, month by month, what your PLC should be doing. So I think that'll be very helpful to you just as a future resource. So when we talk about getting ready for a PLC, it's very important to have an agenda. And I love Rick Dufour because I got to study with him. He's such an awesome person. And we know our meeting norms. What are those like? What do we need to bring? And what are our goals? So then you should have either written or be in the process of writing your SMART goals. For some of us, we've done these 10,000 times, so we can rattle them off pretty quickly. But remember, SMART goals must be SMART. So, specific, measurable, all of those, achievable, etc. Notice, too, that everybody has a responsibility and we have time limits. Somebody was asking me, like, how long should you spend on X, Y, or Z? Notice on here, you're not generally spending more than 10 to 15 minutes on any given activity. Sometimes you may need to dig a little deeper and go longer, but that's sort of the average of the way it should look. And of course, they end by creating the agenda because you want everyone to have a say and to be bought in. Okay, we know those questions again. Remember, for agendas, give to all your team members at least a day in advance with the goals or expected outcomes, topics for discussions, the meeting norms, and D4 gives us a nice, easy little format. Okay? So somebody asked too, do we need to report this back to the principal? Yes. Notice right here, you can do it right there on the agenda. Okay? Oops, sorry. Make sure that you have minutes. The minutes should be sent to the principal as well as participants. They should be read, and then, as we said, to the principal again. Okay, so remember your process. Pre-plan, build team, develop norms, set your goals, focus on making them SMART. Make sure you're paying attention to the essential 4, which are those questions. Don't forget the importance of including in our cycle that CIA triad, which is our curriculum, instruction, and assessment pieces. Make sure we stay focused, we're making decisions, and we're acting upon them, that we are using our PLC framework to guide us, and then, of course, we have to monitor, adjust, and evaluate. If you don't look at evaluation of your PLC pretty frequently, then you may be doing a whole lot of stuff that's not effective. So quarterly might work for you, every semester. It just kind of depends on how your team decides to do it. Okay? So, again, I'm not going to read all this to you, but also don't forget, as D4 teaches us, that we have to have a very strong culture in our school. So schools need a mission and a vision. It still bothers me that some of you couldn't, because I told you in your assignment to find the mission and vision maybe of your school district or parish, and some of them don't have one. So that is concerning, but since we can't change that, you certainly can help to develop a mission and a vision for your own school. If your school is not interested in doing it, then you can do it for your class, for your PLC, for your grade level or team. It's also important that we define our values. Remember the difference between values and goals, okay? Values are what are those kinds of things that we do in terms of our behavior, and what are our attitudes, and how do we handle that versus our actual goals, okay? So, we've talked about this, so I'm not going to go through it all again. But just remember, collaboration, 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 collaboration. You notice you see that a lot here, don't you? School effectiveness is on actual results and not good intentions, okay? Honestly and truly, when we get test results back from the state, there should be absolutely no surprises. If you have a strong PLC system, you should be able to predict with pretty close accuracy how well your students are going to do. Because if we've done our jobs with formative assessment, summative assessment, planning, preparation, remediation, enrichment, all of those pieces, then we know that how our students are going to do. And then remember too, you also have to have those interim progress measures, very important. Okay, so if you want to look at some more of this kind of information, these are some of my favorite resources, and all you have to do is a Google search for them. So Lakeview Public Schools, Crowley ISD has a really good one, Butler County Schools, and then there's a couple of links too. So I tried to hit various places across the country, so I will tell you my personal favorite is the one from Crowley. It's probably the best one I've seen. Okay. Just ignore that about March 3rd. I don't know why that is there because we're clearly not in March. All right, guys, so let me turn sharing off. All right. I'm just trying to read kind of what everybody's doing. Okay. Yeah, and also too, don't forget, and I think Judy just posted this, that Rick Dufour has some awesome videos on YouTube where he is, giving lectures or talking about PLCs, etc. So those are also great resources. Okay, so Dr. Coulter, you're an expert in this field too. Do you want to add anything that maybe would be helpful to our students tonight? I'm thinking he didn't hear me. Okay, what questions or comments or concerns do you guys have? What's on your minds or hearts? Other than, we're just done. Okay, just a couple quick reminders. Group assignments, if you're having a hard time posting them, just email them to me. That's a quick and easy way to get it. Check and see if maybe you have submitted something that I haven't graded yet. I think there's a couple of us, I'm trying to think. I think I'm pretty caught up with you guys. So just let me know. And then remember, next week, the course closes on Saturday instead of Sunday. So that's a little bit different than, what we're used to. If for some horrible reason you can't get everything completed and done by Saturday night at 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, text me first thing Sunday morning. Well, within reason, 4 a.m. is not a good option. But text me and let me know so that I can make sure that I enter the appropriate grade. I know some of you have had some really tragic kind of things happen. So if, we can talk about an incomplete or something like that. But remember, everything's going to be due Saturday, August 18th, 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Kimberly wants to know if you've turned in everything. Is it graded? I think pretty much. Okay, and Kariba wants to look at the PLC plan. Okay, let me see if I can pull that up real quick for you guys. Give me just a second. We'll walk through it real quick. Hang on, I'm going to minimize y'all. No, don't minimize, don't minimize, don't minimize. It doesn't like me to do that. Hang on. Let me see if I can get in Moodle real quick. Yeah, there we go. I'll switch courses. Hang on. Our internet today has been wonky all day, so no guarantees I can make this work. Okay, so I'm trying to look. Okay, so Kariba, you're looking at the, Kariba, jump in here with me if you don't mind. The PLC plan that was what, in week 5? Yeah. Okay, let me see if I can pull this up.
Yes, it was week 5.
Yeah, my stuff sometimes looks different than y'all's because my screen's different, but let me see if I can get this to open. Okay, here we go. All right, let me do sharing again. All right, here we go. Okay, so what you're doing basically, and I'm just going to run through this pretty quickly, is you're taking what you've learned, and some of this is creative writing, I guess. Some of it can be based in reality. In an ideal world, I want you to create a learning plan or learning community plan that you can actually use. So if I'm a 3rd grade teacher, my PLC name might be 3rd grade. My leader might be myself. It could be my department chair. It could be somebody else. Because again, at the end of the day, I prefer y'all do something that you can actually take and use as opposed to just doing it to get a grade. Okay? So if we look at this, let me see if I can move my screen around enough and we can look at this at a single page at a time. There we go. Okay. All right. So obviously, first page. So pretty simple. Tell me the name of the name, 3rd grade, English, history, parent communication, whatever you want, and tell us who's leading it, who the members are, and who the subject matter expert is. Okay. What is your objective? So remember we said a good PLC has to have goals and objectives. So this is what is it that we're hoping to accomplish? We're hoping to raise our scores in math by 15 percentage points. Be a little more descriptive than that, but gives you the idea. So tell us where you are currently. So describe your team members. So if I'm a part of a 3rd grade team and we have 4 members, one of them is a seasoned veteran. She's been teaching 32 years. She handles all of our math planning. Another is a brand new teacher who is fresh out of college, going to need a lot of support, okay? Just give me some idea about who's on the team. Because if you list names up here, I don't know who these people are, okay? Current data. So tell me what is strong about the group and what's weak about the group and what you really need to work on, okay? Now, if you don't have a PLC in mind, you can make one up, literally. But surely all of you guys have been part of some kind of a group, or you want to be part of a certain kind of group. So kind of think about it from that perspective, okay? So set your goals. So remember, use a SMART format. And you only have to list 2 or 3, guys. I'm not asking you to do this like for the whole year. I just want you to get a sense of what it's like to put a plan together that can actually be implemented. So one goal might be to raise our reading scores specifically in the areas of inferencing, main idea, and summarization in 3rd grade by 15 points by the end of, or by May 2019, okay? What actions? So tell us what you're gonna do to either form your PLC or to reform it, okay? So maybe you're starting from scratch, or maybe it's a team that's already together, but you think you can make it better. So for example, just tell me, I'm gonna ask team members to take leadership profile assessments. That's an example. I'll plan a series of team buildings. That's an example. You can put what you feel is best for your team here within it. Now, what benchmarks are we going to use to measure success? How are you going to evaluate the success of our PLC? So, for example, we're going to look at our formative assessment results and see if we are on track. We're going to have some norms that we're going to check every 6 weeks and make sure we're actually adhering to them. Again, guys, there's not a right or wrong answer. This is based on what's going to be best for your PLC. And every PLC is somewhat unique, okay? So, how are you going to use conflict management or mediation to work with difficult and challenging team members? So maybe you need to have somebody come in and do a session on, I don't know, effective listening skills, or how to frame a question appropriately, or what it means to be condescending, whatever. Describe how you're going to use each team member's love language to show them appreciation and praise. Remember, we did love languages. So, for example, I'm a physical touch person. I want that high five. So Tracy is physical touch, so I'm going to give her a high five when she does something great. If it's somebody who likes gifts, maybe you're going to write them a note, something along those lines. Coaching questions. 1 to 3 examples of an open-ended or coaching style question. If you're needing help with coaching questions, go to coachingglobal.com. I'll find the link and post it for you guys when I post the recording tonight. There are some great question starters. And usually it can be something like, tell me what you thought was the best part of your lesson. How did you feel when only two students, got the right answer? What would you do differently? That kind of stuff. Okay, so post-it and follow-up. It's basically the answers are right there for you in the PowerPoint we just went through. So how are you going to communicate your meeting results, etc.? So what other kinds of things do you need to support your PLC? If you're thinking about your team members, maybe they really need some development on how to effectively use cooperative learning. So, pre-planning, what are you going to do? Well, here's an example. First thing I need to do is create the PLC agenda. You only have to list a couple of things. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. So after I do my agenda, what am I going to do next? Well, maybe I'm going to distribute my agenda, and I'm going to ask for feedback and additional topics or amendments or whatever. Then maybe I'm going to plan a team building activity, okay? So budget. So is there something that I'm going to need, and who's going to pay for them? So for example, I might want to have donuts at my meeting, and I'm going to pay for them myself, or I'm going to ask my principal to pay for them. Or I might need copies of the curriculum guides, and the teachers should bring those with them to the meetings. Okay. Norms and expectations. So just list some norms that you think might be important. Now you're going to do this obviously with a team, but just give me some ideas. Okay. Then what are some of the agenda topics? And again, you only have to list a couple. So I gave an example. One thing I think we should talk about at some point are student profiles and a data review. And when I post the guidebook, there's some really good suggestions in there. So if you're struggling with that, I'll go ahead and post it this week instead of waiting. Okay. Then how are you going to know if your PLC was effective? And again, just remember, it all has to be based on results. So we met every week like we said we would. We followed our norms. Our lesson effectiveness improved dramatically as evidenced by. That kind of stuff is how you're going to do the evaluation. And then that's it. Okay. So Kariba, did that kind of answer your question? I've lost Kariba. There she is.
Yeah, I'm still kind of iffy about it, but I'll get it.
Okay, and honestly too, I've told you guys this before you submit your final assignment, if you want to send it to me, I will look it over and give you some tips and pointers. So, but again, guys, this is not rocket science. We're not out here trying to build the next nuclear missile. It's not that complex. This is a plan that has to work for you, and your unique school situation. So, tell me what you think, and, I'll give you some feedback. But at the end of the day, guys, these kind of plans have to meet the needs of your particular campus and team members. I can't give everybody the perfect PLC plan because I don't know your situation. And I don't know the players and the members and all of that. These are tools that hopefully will spur your thinking and give you some foundational pieces. So when you're actually doing the work, you've got something to start with. And trust me, I've written many, 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 many plans in the course of 35 years. And I will tell you, I would still go back and amend every single one of them. Because things change, you learn more, you grow, you realize, man, that was a total bomb, or that was like the best thing ever. And so you have to constantly be rethinking it. So don't let this really, don't spend your lifetime worrying about this, okay? It's really just a tool. That's all it is, okay? And reach out to your team members. Some of you guys are really highly effective PLCs. You've shared some of your practices with me. You've got some really good resources amongst your classmates, okay? Robin, no, there's not two places. It's actually, you will submit in week 5. I just always give you a reminder, okay? Okay, all right. Any other questions or comments, guys, before I let you go? Okay, I know everybody's just drained. Somebody typed that in here. Okay, y'all have a great and wonderful night. I'm giving you exactly 12 minutes of your lives back that you didn't expect, so enjoy those 12 minutes. And for those of you that are starting school next week, good luck. For those of you that have already started today, bless you. It's only a 3-day week. That makes it a little bit easier. But thanks, guys, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.